Kurt was different. From a young age, he possessed a peculiar habit. He spoke to someone no one else could see. School was a cruel mistress. Kurt, a solitary figure, became an easy target for bullies. Their taunts echoed in the schoolyard, each jeer a stone against his fragile shell. He endured their cruelty with stoic silence, his eyes downcast, seeking refuge in the comforting presence of his unseen friend. One day, the ringleader of Kurt's tormentors disappeared, vanished without a trace. The school buzzed with rumors, a current of unease running beneath the surface. Kurt, however, felt a strange sense of relief. The school playground, once a vibrant arena of laughter and games, now held a palpable tension. Kurt, however, seemed immune to the pervasive fear. He walked with a newfound confidence, his head held high, a small, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. Recess, once a dreaded ordeal, became a source of twisted amusement. Kurt's home life remained unchanged, a bland routine that did little to penetrate the wall of darkness that had descended around him in Yukon. The disappearance of Michael Turner, the schoolyard bully who had tormented Kurt most relentlessly, sent shockwaves through the community of Yukon. Michael, a hulking boy with a cruel streak, had simply vanished one afternoon, last seen walking home alone after school. The police were called, a search party was organized, but no trace of Michael was ever found. A pall of fear settled over the school, heavier than ever before. The late afternoon sun cast long, eerie shadows across the playground as Kurt lingered near the swings. Michael, his usual swagger replaced by a nervous energy, had lingered near the school entrance, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. Michael, his bravado finally crumbling, made a dash for the school gates, his backpack bouncing awkwardly against his back. A swirling vortex of shadows, like ink bleeding into water, rose from the pavement behind Michael, tendrils of darkness reaching out to engulf him. The following days were a blur of hushed whispers and anxious glances. Michael's disappearance had cast a pall over the school, the weight of his absence heavy in the air. Teachers spoke in low tones, their faces etched with concern, their efforts to maintain order tinged with a palpable fear. Kurt, however, moved through the halls with an almost preternatural calm, his secret knowledge a shield against the fear that gripped his classmates. The disappearances continued. One by one, the bullies who had tormented Kurt vanished. Emily, the girl who had spread vicious rumors about him, disappeared from the library, leaving behind only a scattering of textbooks and a single blood-chilling scream echoing through the silent stacks. John, the boy who had tripped Kurt in the hallway, vanished from the soccer field during practice, his laughter swallowed by the encroaching twilight. The once peaceful town of Yukon had transformed into a ghost of its former self. Gone were the days of children playing freely in the streets, their laughter echoing through the warm summer air. Now an unsettling silence hung over the town, broken only by the hushed whispers of worried neighbors and the distant wail of police sirens Every missing person poster plastered on telephone poles and storefronts served as a stark reminder of the unseen force that had gripped their community. Kurt, once a victim of the bully's cruelty, now held their fates in his hands. He had become the gatekeeper, the one who decided who would be spared and who would be offered up to the insatiable hunger that lurked in the shadows. He knew with a chilling certainty that the entity craved more than just fear. It craved their essence, their life force, and it was through him that it would claim its due. The price of power. Kurt's transformation was nearly complete. Gone was the timid boy who had once sought solace in whispers. In his place stood something cold and calculating. His eyes now burned with an unholy light. He no longer questioned the horrors he was asked to commit. He had embraced his role as the harbinger of darkness. He had tasted power, and it was intoxicating. But power always comes at a price. The entity had used Kurt to gain a foothold in this world. They spoke of betrayal, of sacrifice, of a debt that must be paid. He had served his purpose, and now it was his turn to be consumed by the darkness. A glimpse behind the veil. Kurt sat alone in his room, the once familiar space now steeped in an oppressive silence. The whisperers, his constant companions, had fallen silent, leaving an unsettling sense of foreboding. He could feel their presence, a palpable weight in the air, but their voices were distant. A knot of unease tightened in Kurt's chest. Their silence was unnerving, a chilling harbinger of something he couldn't grasp. He tried to summon them, but his calls were met with only an echoing emptiness. He rose and walked to the window, his bare feet padding silently across the cold floor. The street below was deserted, the houses dark and lifeless. A lone dog howled in the distance, a chilling counterpoint to the silence. He closed his eyes, focusing his will, trying to pierce the veil. He could feel its presence, vast and ancient, lurking just beyond his perception. It was a sensation that sent shivers down his spine, a mixture of awe and terror. And then, for the briefest moment, the veil parted, and he glimpsed the true nature of the entity. What Kurt saw in that fleeting glimpse chilled him to the core. In its place stood a creature of pure darkness, its form shifting and swirling. It was a vortex of shadows and whispers, its edges razored and sharp. He recoiled from the window, his heart pounding, his breath ragged. The entity's true nature filled him with a primal terror. He had been a fool, seduced by its promises of power. The whispers returned, laced with cold fury. They accused him of betrayal, of failing to satisfy their hunger. They demanded a final offering, a sacrifice. Panic surged through Kurt, cold and sharp. He stumbled back, his hands shaking, his mind racing. The entity craved something more. It craved him. He tried to block out the whispers, but it was no use. It had sunk its claws too deep, its tendrils woven too tightly. He was theirs, body and soul, with nowhere to run. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, their words hammering in Kurt's skull like blows from a blacksmith's hammer. He could feel his resolve crumbling, his resistance fading with each passing moment. He was theirs, and he would do their bidding, even if it meant his own destruction. The entity's presence filled the room, its power palpable, suffocating. The air grew heavy, charged with a static energy that made the hairs on Kurt's arms stand on end. The shadows in the corners deepened, writhing and twisting as if they were alive, their edges sharp as razors, their depths promising oblivion. He felt a tug at the edges of his awareness, a pull towards the swirling vortex of darkness that now dominated his room. He tried to resist, to anchor himself to the fading remnants of his humanity, but it was no use. The entity was too powerful, its hold on him unbreakable. With a final heart-wrenching cry, Kurt felt himself being drawn towards the vortex. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the inevitable as the shadows enveloped him, swallowing him whole. The vortex pulsed once, a shudder of dark satisfaction, and then vanished, leaving behind only an eerie silence, the lingering scent of ozone and decay. The entity had claimed its final offering, its hunger momentarily sated, but its thirst for darkness was insatiable, and it would not be long before it sought out new prey, new pawns to manipulate, new souls to devour. And the town of Yukon, forever marked by the entity's touch, would never be the same. An unsettling quiet fell upon Yukon. The entity, its hunger momentarily satiated, had withdrawn, leaving behind a void where terror had once reigned. The missing children were never found, their fates a chilling mystery that haunted the town's collective memory. The whispers, once so pervasive, so insidious, had vanished, leaving an echoing silence in their wake. Life, in its relentless way, stumbled on. The townspeople, their initial shock and grief giving way to a weary acceptance, began the slow process of rebuilding. The missing person posters, weathered and torn, were gradually taken down, replaced by flyers for bake sales and town meetings. The school reopened, its hallways no longer echoing with fear, but a somber quiet hung in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the darkness that had once walked among them. The playground, once a place of joy and laughter, remained eerily deserted. The swings hung motionless, their chains creaking softly in the breeze. The slide stood cold and uninviting, its metal surface dulled with disuse. It was as if the very air around it was tainted, a constant reminder of the children who had vanished without a trace. Kurt's family, shattered by his disappearance, eventually moved away, seeking a fresh start in a place where the shadows of their past wouldn't follow them. Their house stood empty, a silent monument to a tragedy that no one dared to speak of. The entity, however, was not gone. It lurked in the shadows, biding its time, its hunger growing with each passing day. Years passed, Yukon slowly healed, its wounds fading into scars, its memories buried beneath layers of normalcy. A new generation of children filled the schoolyard with their laughter, their games, their innocent obliviousness to the horrors that had come before. But the darkness, like a persistent stain, never truly vanished. Whispers of the missing children lingered in the town's folklore, passed down from one generation to the next, like a cautionary tale. Parents, their voices hushed, warned their children about the dangers of straying too far from home, of talking to strangers, of the unseen forces that lurked at the edges of their world. And in the shadows, the entity smiled. It had not forgotten Yukon, nor had it abandoned its plans. It had tasted the fear of this town, and it craved more. It watched, it waited, its patience infinite, its hunger growing with each passing day. One day, a new family moved into Kurt's old house. They were a young couple, full of hope and dreams, eager to start a new chapter in their lives. They had a son, a bright-eyed boy with a quick smile and an active imagination. And like Kurt before him, he began to hear whispers in the darkness, whispers that promised him friendship, power, and a world unseen by ordinary eyes. The legacy of shadows had returned to Yukon. The cycle was about to begin again.